بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. Remember, we're here for the sake of Allah. We are not here for any other reason. We are here because we want to make sure that we are that the transactions that we are engaging in on a day-to-day basis, we are doing that correctly. Insha'Allah, the rules will come. We're going to go through the rules, insha'Allah. But today is a bit of an introduction. In the third lesson, insha'Allah, we will start going through some of the rules. What is to come, if I can just tell you now, insha'Allah, is speaking about the rules of buying and selling. We're going to look at riba, usurious gain. We're going to look at debt and what a person in debt can and cannot do, and the etiquettes of taking a loan from somebody. We're going to look at the permissible begging. We're going to look at someone who is poor in relation to the husband and wife, the parents, siblings, friends. We're going to look at many other matters. Day-to-day transactions also. We're going to talk about banks. So all of that is to come, insha'Allah. But all of this requires an introduction, like the first session that we went through, insha'Allah. And all religious knowledge is important. The reason why there is this focus on transactions is that if you conduct an invalid transaction and you pay money for it, so you acquire a service, and then obviously you're going to pay for it. If it's not free, then you're going to pay for it. If it's invalid, then it's a major sin. If it's invalid, then it is a major sin. And I remind you and myself that one major sin means that a person deserves the punishment of Allah. One deserves the punishment of Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. This means that if a person dies and they haven't repented from that major sin, they haven't learned that it's a major sin or that it's sinful, and they haven't repented in the correct way, then they deserve the punishment of Allah in the hereafter. Yes, Allah may have eternally willed to forgive that person, but this person, as things stand, deserves the punishment of Allah. And there will be people that Allah has eternally willed not to forgive for their major sins. There is a lot of injustice that exists nowadays when it comes to money and transactions. Every invalid transaction that money is used for is a major sin, is an injustice. And we'll discuss that more, inshallah, a little later. So, among the habits of the prophets, and likewise the pious people, is that they used the means. This is a habit of the prophets and a habit of the pious people, that they use the means. For example, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, engaged in trade. He engaged in trade, buying and selling. He worked, he was employed by Lady Khadija radiyallahu anha. As you all know, she sent him with another one of her employees to buy and sell for her. And he did, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is the habit of the prophets. Al-Bukhari narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, كان داود عليه السلام لا يأكل إلا من عمل يده. كان داود عليه السلام, أي Dawood, upon him be peace, كان لا يأكل إلا من عمل يده. He would not eat except from that which his hand literally earned. Meaning he worked. He worked and he earned money. With that money he would purchase food and he would eat. Meaning he would eat from his own earnings. So he had a job. The Prophet ﷺ also said, كان زكرياء عليه السلام نجارا. Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, who was in the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, the father of Yahya, in the time of Lady Maryam, he was a prophet of Allah who taught in Jerusalem, Bayt al-Maqdis, in al-Masjid al-Aqsa. He would teach the scholars, but at the same time, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, kana najjara, he was a carpenter. He made things out of wood, like you make doors and tables, chairs, and other things out of wood, instruments. He would carve things out of wood. He was a carpenter. Meaning this was his job, meaning that he sold things. People would buy from him. These were his halal earnings. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا أَكَلَ أَحَدٌ طَعَامًا قَطُّ خَيْرًا مِنْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ مِنْ عَمَلِ يَدَيْهِ. He said, مَا أَكَلَ أَحَدٌ طَعَامًا قَطُّ خَيْرًا مِنْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ مِنْ عَمَلِ يَدَيْهِ. Nobody has ever consumed food. No one has ever eaten food that was better than the food eaten from the earnings of oneself. Literally, from the earnings with one's own hands. This is the best type of food. That you work with your hands, or you work, you actually, it doesn't have to be your hands. You work, you do a job, you actually go out and work, or nowadays remotely, you work, you earn, and from that you sustain yourself. And then he continued, he said, وَإِنَّ نَبِيَّ اللَّهِ دَاوُودَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ كَانَ يَأْكُلُ مِنْ عَمَلِ يَدِهِ. And Dawood alayhi salam would eat from his own earnings, meaning he would work. Here again the hand is used, min amali yadi, from the amal, from the doings of his hand, meaning he would work and he would earn, and from those earnings he would eat. He was a blacksmith. He used to make armor for soldiers. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala gave him the ability to bend iron. Usually you'd have to heat it, but Allah gave him the ability as a miracle to bend iron, and he would do that, and he would make body armor that soldiers would wear, and he would curl it, and he would stick it together. He would attach all the pieces together, and then he would sell this and make money. So he had a job. He was a prophet of Allah, but he had a job. Prophet Idris alayhi salam was a tailor. He was someone who would sew. And this was his job. He would get paid for it. So this is the way of the prophets. This is the way of the pious. This is the way of scholars even. Sometimes you hear about scholars, like for example, Al-Quduri, the famous scholar, the Hanafi scholar, Al-Quduri. His title is Al-Quduri because he used to sell Al-Qudur. A Qudur is a pot. He used to sell pots. Yes, he was a very knowledgeable person and he authored books and he taught religious knowledge, but he sold pots for a living. Sometimes you hear about scholars having a title Al-Khayyat, meaning the tailor. Al-Hakim narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or was asked, Ayyul kasbi atyab? Literally, which type of acquisition is most pleasant, is the best? What's the best type of acquisition? He said, Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Amalu rajuli biyadihi, for a man to work himself, for him to be hands-on, to have a job that he does, he provides a service and he gets paid for it. Obviously, with the rules of the religion, in accordance with the rules of the religion. He said, Amalu rajuli biyadihi. This shows that having a job, it's something the prophets did. And it shows that this doesn't negate relying on Allah. It does not negate relying on Allah. If a person doesn't have any dependents, they're not married, their parents have passed away, they don't have any children. If they want, then they could make dua to Allah and say, Ya Allah, grant me my rizq. They might not have a job, but they could say, Ya Allah, grant me my rizq while I am here, worshipping you. Grant me my rizq. And this is fine. This is fine. But the prophets of Allah, this is not what they did. The pious people who followed the prophets, the way of the prophets of Allah, this is not what they did. They actually worked. So if one draws a comparison and says, well, that person sitting at home is relying on Allah and this is really good. And the prophets worked. So one should not understand that, well, working to earn money, this is a type of weakness in a person. No, because the prophets did it and they taught us the way. So working doesn't negate relying on Allah. One can use the means and still rely on Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Relying on Allah means for a person to know with certainty that Allah creates all the benefits and Allah creates all the harms. This is relying on Allah. Relying on Allah means that I know that my rizq If it is written for me, then it is coming. If it's written for me, then I rely on Allah. If it's written for me, then I'll be patient with it. I'll be patient with whatever I get. If I get a lot, alhamdulillah. If I do not get a lot, alhamdulillah. I'm going to be patient. This is a test for me. This is the meaning of relying on Allah. If a person is poor, then their rizq is very little. The person recognizes that this is from Allah. I'm in a tough situation and this is from Allah, and I'm obligated to be patient. I am reliant upon Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَأَنْ يَأْخُذَ أَحَدُكُمْ حَبْلَهُ, for a person to take his rope. For a man, for example, to take his rope. فَيَأْتِيَ بِحُزْمَةٍ مِّنْ حَطَبٍ عَلَى ظَهْرِهِ, and for him to, لَأَنْ يَأْخُذَ أَحَدُكُمْ حَبْلَهُ ثُمَّ يَأْتِيَ الْجَبَلِ, and he would go to a mountain. He takes his rope, for a man to take his rope and climb a mountain. فَيَأْتِيَ بِحُزْمَةٍ مِّنْ حَطَبٍ عَلَى ظَهْرِهِ, and with that rope somehow he ties it to himself, and he collects logs, wooden logs, and somehow he brings them down the mountain by using the rope and somehow tying them to his back. لَأَنْ يَأْخُذَ أَحَدُكُمْ حَبْلَهُ ثُمَّ يَأْتِيَ الْجَبَلَ فَيَأْتِيَ بِحُزْمَةٍ مِّنْ حَطَبٍ عَلَى ظَهْرِهِ, for him to do that, فَيَبِيعَهَا, and then to sell it, فَيَسْتَغْنِيَ بِهَا, and then by that, he has enough, meaning he doesn't need to beg. Which, if a person didn't have anything, if they were poor, they could beg, that's permissible. But for a person to do this, to use the means, to take a rope, to climb a mountain or go to an area where there are logs, to collect the logs, to bring them back, and to sell them, so that he doesn't need to ask people, خَيْرٌ لَهُ, it is better for him. خَيْرٌ لَهُ مِنْ أَنْ يَسْأَلَ النَّاسَ أَعْطَوْهُ أَوْ مَنَعُهُ. It is better for him to do that, to go and work, use the means, exert effort, sell, and then, as a result, not ask people. This is better for him to work than to ask people and then be given or not be given. The situation is, if he begs, he might be given by some and others don't give to him. He might beg and might not be given anything. So, rather than him asking people, rather than begging and then be given or not given, it's better for him to work. So surely in that there is an encouragement from the Prophet ﷺ to work. He also said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, لَوْ تَوَكَّلْتُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ. Had you relied upon Allah in the perfect way, had you relied upon Allah in the perfect way, كَمَا يُرْزَقُ الطَّيْرِ, had you relied upon Allah in the proper way, Allah would sustain you. Had you relied upon Allah in the proper way, لَوْ تَوَكَّلْتُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ لَرَزَقَكُمْ. Allah would have sustained you, provided for you, كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرِ, just as Allah provides for the bird. تَغْدُو خِمَاصًا وَتَرُوحُ بِطَانًا. Just as Allah provides for the bird that goes in the morning that leaves the nest in the morning hungry and empty, and then returns full. Allah provides for it. So he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, if you relied upon Allah in the perfect way, then Allah would provide for you, just as Allah provides for the bird that leaves its nest hungry, empty stomached, and returns at the end of the day and it's full. This was narrated by Al-Imam Ahmad, and Al-Imam Ahmad commented, Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiyallahu anhu. He said, هذا الحديث, this hadith, فيه ما يدل على الطلب لا القعود. He said, this hadith contains within it an encouragement to work, not to sit. Not to sit. If a person did sit at home, not doing anything, as long as they don't have dependents and so on, and those are the details. He or she sat at home. So let's say he sits at home and he makes dua to Allah. He says, Ya Allah, grant me, grant me, grant me. But doesn't work, doesn't go out to work. This person is relying on Allah, that's fine. But some people might look at this hadith and say, oh well, yeah, this hadith is saying that, just rely on Allah, don't use the means. But Al-Imam Ahmad said, no, this hadith actually contains an encouragement for people to go out and work. Lal qu'ud, not sitting at home and just making dua, which is also okay. He said, arada, i.e. the Prophet intended, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Al-Imam Ahmad said, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam intended, arada, لو توكلوا في ذهابهم ومجيئهم وتصرفهم. Had the people behaved, had they relied on Allah in their going and their coming, in their behavior, وعلموا أن الخير بيده, and were certain that Allah is the one that provides, وَمِنْ عِنْدِهِ لَمْ يَنْصَرِفُوا إِلَّا سَالِمِينَ غَانِمِينَ كَالطَّيْرِ. If they know in their doings, in their going and their coming, in all of their movements, if they know that Allah is the one that provides and that everything is from Him, then Allah would give this person just as He gives the bird. And doesn't the bird leave the nest? Yes. He said the bird leaves the nest, which is a sign that the Prophet is encouraging us to work, be hands-on, actually have a job. And in that, it doesn't mean that that person is not relying upon Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, for the Battle of Uhud, he wore 2 sets of armor. He put on 1 set of armor on his body, and then he put on a second. Right? He put on a second. Someone might say, well, if a person wants to rely completely on Allah, then why wear any armor at all? Someone might say that. And if a person looks at the situation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by doing that, by putting 2 sets of armor on, he's showing us that taking by the means is permissible. And it's actually a good thing. Like the example of tie your camel. Okay? Tie your camel as well. Rely on Allah and tie your camel. So this is an encouragement from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam for a person to work. He said alayhi salatu wasalam in another hadith, لا تستبطئ الرزق. Don't think of the rizq to be slow. Don't think that, oh, it's not coming. I'm not getting a rizq. It's really it's not as much as I thought it would be. I'm struggling. لا تستبطئ الرزق فإنه لم يكن عبد يموت حتى يبلغه آخر الرزق. Because there is no slave except that he will be given his rizq in full. There is no slave except that he will be given his rizq, his sustenance in full. Yes, it might be little. It might be very little. But this is what is written. This is what is written. فَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. He said, alayhi salatu wassalam, فَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. Meaning, seek your rizq by halal means. Your rizq will reach you. But the Prophet's encouraging us, alayhi salatu wassalam, to take an active role in that. To take an active role in that. So the prophets of Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, and the pious people, this is their habit. Their habit is to work. Their habit is to acquire money so that they can provide for their dependents. Insha'Allah, we'll stop here for now. We will pray al-Dhuhr and then we will resume at 1 o'clock, insha'Allah. In the next session, we're going to be looking at who is it that is expected to work and who religiously, if they are excused from working, then they could beg. Or they would be considered poor. We'll talk about in the next session the basic needs and some things that might be thought by some to be basic needs, but they are not basic needs. We're going to touch upon some things that relate to the chapter of marriage and providing for one's wife, but we're not going to go into details about that. And we'll discuss that next session, insha'Allah. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim.